How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel and welcome to my thoughts on Transformers 1. Ever since they were going to be doing a Transformers animated movie where we were going to be seeing Optimus Prime and Megatron before they became enemies, that was going to be very interesting. Then they announced that Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry were going to be voicing Megatron and Optimus Prime respectively, and that got me a little bit more curious, mostly because Peter Cullen's voice is so iconic and so well known with Optimus Prime. It was going to be really hard hearing the voice of Optimus Prime coming out of Chris Hemsworth instead of Peter Cullen. And I know a lot of people were really bagging on the trailer. I was probably in the minority that had a lot of fun with that trailer, so that got me really interested in the movie. Then we have all the reviews coming out praising it as the best Transformers movie and probably one of the best films of the year. And boy, did I come out really surprised with this movie, because even though I didn't have sky high expectations, I had moderate expectations. I was really hoping that this would be a movie that I would really enjoy. I didn't expect to enjoy this movie as much as I did, because this movie has no right being as good as it turned out to be. The relationship that we have between Orion Pack and D16 before they became Optimus Prime and Megatron is so well built that it is hard to believe that these two become enemies, because the relationship that they build between these two, and not just the voice performances by Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry, but seeing how they were bonded as brothers. They had each other's backs. When one was in trouble, the other one was there to step up and help them out. That is something that really had me hooked from the moment the movie begins, because even though this is the animated origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron, Orion Pax and D16, the surrounding characters played by Scarlett Johansson and Keegan-Michael Key were really the things that made this movie feel whole. The thing that made this movie feel like you were invested in every single characters. And even though we have a new animation style, which, so when we have a new animation style like this, it takes me a while for me to get used to this world. Once you're locked into the world, none of that really matters, because the animation style that we have for this movie has really a life of its own. You feel like you're living in this world with these characters. And even when it came down to the humor, yeah, you have those cliched humors that we've seen in many movies before, but then at times they really pepper in a couple of moments of adult humor where it's just going to be for the adults to get that type of humor, which I really enjoyed and I really appreciate. And that's something that really stood out to me. Not only just the characters, which B127, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key, was really the standout, because I think he had a lot more of the funniest moments here and there. And if you're a fan of Key and Peele, there's going to be a joke in here that you're going to get automatically. The heart that is infused in here when it came down to Orion Pack and D16 is definitely one of the most heartbreaking elements of this movie, because you know exactly how the movie is going to end. By the time that the movie ends, these two are going to be enemies, and that is something that you really don't want to see happen for at least a couple of other movies, mostly because you're really invested with these two characters that it's hard for you to see these two just become enemies. A lot of that is heartbreaking, and it's probably going to speak to a lot of people that have been in this particular situation, where you have best friends that you either grew up with or had a really close connection with, and then you guys go separate ways, whether it's going to be for one reason or another. If you have been in that situation, that's going to be the emotional heartbeat that you don't want happen for a while, because you want these two to stay friends, especially the way that the relationship was built. I think you could have stretched it out for a couple of more movies, and I think it would have been a great origin story trilogy. But even when it came down to the animation style, the thing that always surprises me when it comes down to animation is how great they get a lot of the action sequences, because they all look really beautiful, especially since a lot of this movie is set on Cybertron. A lot of the action sequences in here look so beautiful, so clean. And that is something that I really appreciate when it comes down to the animated actions. Whenever you're able to get those kind of action sequences, whether you're talking about the Kung Fu Panda movies, or if you're talking about the How to Train Your Dragon movies, whenever you're able to get such beautiful and crystal clear animation action, that is something to be celebrated, because it looked just absolutely flawless. Now, with all that out of the way, a couple of the nitpicks that I have for this movie is the fact that even though this movie ends with Orion Pax and D16 becoming enemies, I felt like that turn was a little bit rushed. It felt like we were trying to get to that point where, like I said before, you can stretch it out to a trilogy, and then the final movie is where they become enemies. The way that we have Orion Pax and D16 get to be Optimus Prime and Megatron felt a little bit too quick for me, and there were some slow moving pieces here and there. But other than that, those are really the only nitpicks that I have for this movie, because everything else about this movie exceeded my expectations, because I went into this movie expecting a nice, charming little animated movie that will resemble with a lot of Transformers fans. I just didn't expect it to hit me on such an emotional level that I just came out really enjoying this movie. Probably didn't love it as much as a lot of people. I think it is the best Transformers movie that we have gotten so far. But overall, this is a movie that you definitely have to vibe in theaters, because just a beautiful animation, the wonderful sound design that we have in this movie is something that you need to experience on the biggest screen possible with the loudest sound possible. And I really came out really enjoying this movie. It definitely is my favorite Transformers film of all time to this point, and hopefully, I know it's not doing very well at the box office, but I really hope that all the critical and fan response to this movie will be able to launch this movie to get two more or a couple of more films in the series, because this is a franchise that I would love to see grow in the animation style. We've gotten rid of the humans, and this is just solely focused on the Transformers from beginning to end. If they made 2, 3, or 4 more of these movies, I would definitely be there day one. But those are my thoughts on Transformers 1. Have you guys checked it out? Are you planning on checking it out? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys for the next video.